This portion of the John Fredericks Show is brought to you by Hargrave Military Academy. Attend an educational and informative open house event at Hargrave Military Academy in Chatham, Virginia. For more information, visit online at hargrave.edu. Hargrave Military Academy. Build his future.
Let's go live to Edward Yeranian, live in Cairo, Egypt. Edward, how are you?
Yes, John, I'm okay. I hope the phone line holds out. They were playing with it earlier, and when you say you were not smoking, we certainly have had a lot of smoke here. People were burning fires, which looked like they were deliberately set to create confusion. And, of course, in the two sit-in camps that the Army and police were trying to clear out, there was some tear gas, quite a bit of tear gas fired as well. And it looks like the Muslim Brotherhood people have their plan to create confusion in as many places as possible while this is all going on. So it's a bit of a mess this morning.
Now, we understand, Edward, overnight that Egyptian security forces have stormed the main sit-in camp of supporters of ousted President Mohammed Morsi in eastern Cairo. What is exactly the situation there? I mean, I think one of the big risks here for the U.S. is if they start to open fire, you know what's going to happen in the media and the news. There's going to be all kinds of pressure, and then we're going to turn these Muslim Brotherhood thugs basically into martyrs. Tell us of that situation.
Yes, well, actually, the Muslim Brotherhood, the people at the camp in the north of Cairo, were claiming that 2,200 people were killed. Obviously, you can see from those figures that they're trying to play on people's sympathy. There's no way there were 2,200 people killed. In fact, Jazeera TV, which is on their side, has been broadcasting from inside that camp, showed about 10 bodies, so I'm sure if they had 2,200, they would have been showing bodies all over the place. Clearly, they want to turn this into an international incident. In fact, one of their leaders said a few days ago they were willing to have 1 million martyrs. It looks like they're not only trying to look like the victims, but they're trying to create chaos and havoc all across the country. Internationally, I think they're expecting someone outside the country, some of the foreign leaders, to come in and say, hey, yeah, the Egyptian army and police are being brutal and massacring people. Perhaps that will happen at some point. I don't know. You can never tell. But in any case, it looks very, very ugly out there.
Well, look, I think the Egyptian military leaders know that any kind of a mass situation that is going to cause multiple deaths of innocent people is going to backfire on them. So I don't think that's going to happen unless they're fired on, and obviously then they're going to fire back, and that's one of the issues you've got, especially when the Muslim Brotherhood wants to potentially incite violence so that they can be martyrs. Now, a couple of comments. Wednesday's developments now are what I'm going to call, kind of the latest chapter in this turmoil, and it seems that we've got this permanent division now in Egypt, Edward, and correct me, between, on one side you've got the fundamentalist Islamists led by the Muslim Brotherhood, which are not friends of the West, and on the other side there's everybody else, moderates, secularists, liberals, Christians, people of faith that are not Muslim, reasonable people. See, it's like you got everybody on one side that's not a fundamentalist Islamist, and then you've got the fundamentalist Islamists on the other side, right? I mean, isn't that how this thing is played out now?
Yes, pretty much in a nutshell, and I'd go even farther than that. I think the battle is for the soul of the entire Arab world right now, because you're seeing similar situations play out in Tunisia, Libya, Yemen, Syria, although Syria is a bit different. But I'd say what I'm seeing is that the Arab world, Egypt especially, is trying to spit out political Islam. It looks like their popularity is dwindling dramatically, and the more they create things like this havoc across the country, the less popular they're going to become. So many analysts have been telling me here that they think the political Islamists, the Muslim Brotherhood in particular, are finished as far as being a key player on the scene. I can't say that for sure at this point, but certainly they're digging their graves.
Well, they're certainly going to make it their last stand there. And, you know, look, there's absolutely no doubt in anybody's mind that that they're going to dig in, and there's going to be violence there because, as you're saying, you know, they're circling the drain. And when you got an organization like this, basically, that's on the way down the toilet, and, you know, they're not shy about being martyrs themselves. So we know there's going to be violence with it as they're circling the bottom of the barrel. But the bottom line is the people in Egypt don't want them. I mean, they've wreaked havoc in the streets, havoc on the government. Economically there, it's a disaster. Everything that they touch is a nightmare. And so the majority of Egyptians don't want them. And I hope the U.S. sees that and stands behind it. Now, I've got to ask you this question, okay? What on earth can you classify as the outcome of the Senator McCain and Senator Lindsey Graham junket to Egypt? They go there, they spend 5 days, they accomplish what I can see, nothing, and now we have this violence. What exactly did McCain and Graham, in your mind, Edward, accomplish by their jaunt to Egypt?
Yes, they created certainly a great deal of antagonism towards the United States among many ordinary Egyptians, people that we would want to have as friends, people that we normally classify as being allies and on our side, trying to court the Muslim Brotherhood and the Islamists who don't like us anyway. So whatever their motivation was for coming, they certainly created the opposite effect, creating more antagonism.
I'll tell you what's really troubling to me, Edward, when you look at this situation, and now you've got, different people in the U.S. giving sympathy to the Muslim Brotherhood, which, as I've said, has been a catastrophic political and economic disaster for the people of Egypt. They don't want them in there, led by John McCain, Lindsey Graham, and God knows who else. But here we are in the U.S. worrying about surveilling every citizen, getting every email, getting every phone call, trampling on our Fourth Amendment rights in the guise of keeping us safe. Now you've got this situation in Egypt where everybody knows that the Muslim Brotherhood is an enemy of the West, enemy of the U.S., a harborer of fundamental Islamists that want to see Americans dead or harmed. So the whole thing to me doesn't make any sense. I don't know why the U.S. doesn't just take a stand and say, look, we're going to stand with those in charge right now because that's what the Egyptian people want. That's better for us, and provide them with whatever they need to be successful. Instead, we're straddling the middle. We got John McCain going over there and spewing out his neocon nonsense. What do you make of it?
Yes, John, I suspect, as many Egyptians here are saying, that there was some reason, political reason, for the U.S. and President Obama to want to support the Muslim Brotherhood. There is a great deal of antipathy in the press towards Mr. Obama in particular, and many Egyptian journalists I've talked to think that he is supporting the Muslim Brotherhood personally. Whether that is true or whether that is false, that certainly is the perception in the minds of many people over here.
Edward, perception is reality, especially in the international front. We know that, and this is the key question that's got to be asked. I'm going to keep asking it. You don't have to answer it, but it's got to be asked now. The question is, did John McCain's visit to Egypt last week incite this violence? You've got to ask that. It's a tough question. It's uncomfortable. I'm sorry, Senator, but we got to ask the questions. You went there, you pabbled off, you popped off. Did your visit and what you said fire up the Muslim Brotherhood, and was it a precursor, a catalyst to now inciting this violence? I hope it isn't, but As a journalist, I got to ask that question, Edward.
Yes, John, that is a very good question. I'm asking it myself. I don't know the answer, but I think people should ponder that at least when they're thinking about what's going on here.
Okay, Edward Yeranian, we're out of time. We want to thank you for joining us. Edward Yeranian, senior veteran foreign correspondent live in Cairo, Egypt. Edward, thanks for being with us. Stay safe.
My pleasure, John.